Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I'm going to be going through some of the questions submitted to me by VIP members over in my Discord. If you don't know, I have a section in my Discord where VIP members can basically ask me questions that I will review on video. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We've got some really good questions. Most of them are tying into exit strategy. So a large part of this video is going to be focused on that for when the time comes to take profits. But there are some questions on other things as well. So if that sounds interesting, guys, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I upload daily crypto content, live streams, videos, all that good stuff. And if you want access to my personal buy and sell alerts alongside a plethora of other benefits, including a 24/7 Discord community, check out the link in the description. Use the code SAVE20 at checkout. This isn't going to be here long, guys. Once the market recovers, I will be removing this sale, and you will no longer be able to use it. So go ahead and take full advantage of the discounts. Like I said, this is the time to be joining while there's discounts in the market, and while there's really good prices on altcoins. So check it out. Okay, so the first question is by Victor, and this question says, what is a good selling strategy? Selling all in one bulk, so bulk selling. DCA out. Can you explain? Okay, so he's asking, should you DCA out or should you sell all in bulk? The right answer is probably a combination of the two. You don't necessarily just DCA out for a whole entire year, but you don't necessarily want to sell in bulk in one day, right? So I would say it's like a few weeks period of profit taking once the market kind of enters the full-on greed emotion and exhaustion. And that can last for a few weeks. So during that period, you want to be taking profits. I wouldn't be taking profits now, right? So it's not just a case of DCAing out randomly at any point. You want to be doing it based on actual price, based on targets and things like that. And we will actually touch on that here. So when it comes to taking profits, when it comes to an exit strategy, you want to obviously be trying to time the top as much as possible. Now, with an extent, okay? Now, when it comes to exit strategy, you obviously want to be trying to time the top. Now, there's a degree of nuance and balance that we need to talk about when it comes to trying to time the top, because you can never be perfect. If you try and time the top exactly, I guarantee you 99% of people, they're not going to do it. So it needs to be balanced. And you need to understand as well, the chances of you timing the top are very, very unlikely, just like the chances of you timing the exact bottom are very unlikely. And I would say the top is maybe even harder because you're entering price discovery. When you're timing a bottom, usually you have support below you. But when you're timing a top, there is nothing to kind of go off, right? You're in price discovery mode. So it can be difficult. And that's why so many people come out of crypto in a loss and they only realize later on, oh, shit, that was the top. So one thing you can do is look at the big charts that matter, okay? You can look at obviously individual altcoins, and I do that. But the main thing you want to be looking at is Bitcoin itself and the total 3 for altcoins, okay? And that's personally what I'm doing. Every single day I'm checking Bitcoin. Every single day I'm checking the total 3. And what I'm also doing is doing some fib retracements or extensions. And I'll go from the top there to the recent low. And that will give me targets higher up, okay? For example, with the total 3, I would be thinking that if it gets to the 1.618, which is 1.48 trillion, if it gets to that, that is a really nice level to be taking some profits on your altcoins, okay? And then if it gets even higher and it goes to the 2.618, that's just under 2 trillion. That's another really nice level to start DCAing. So I would suggest maybe DCAing out based on fib levels. Not just that, but that's part of the equation. And then if we look at Bitcoin, I would be looking at this all-time chart. And I pull up Bitcoin here. And what do you see? Okay, you see this massive trend line stretching all the way back to 2017. This is on all the major highs for Bitcoin. 2017's high, both the highs in 2021, and this recent high we made here. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking that is a key level of resistance. There's a solid chance we come up to here and maybe reject. It's not guaranteed. Maybe we go a lot higher. But I think if we come into contact with this trend line, that is another really nice chance to take some profits. And doesn't it look very similar to 2021? The way how this structure is. We come up to the trend line, then we have a bull market crash, then we have a second high, which is slightly higher. to me, that is where we are right now. We're in a very similar structure to 2021. Now, history doesn't repeat, but it certainly does rhyme. And it certainly rhymes when you go and put the Gaussian channel on the chart on the weekly as well. Where did we find our support during the bull market crash of 2021? We found our support at the Gaussian channel. Same thing happened here. And you may be wondering, what is this blue line here? That is actually the price action of the 2021 second run-up mirrored onto the current Bitcoin chart. And if the same thing happens, we'd be looking at Bitcoin around 118K around August. Very, very interesting indeed. Obviously, you can't copy and paste history. That's not how it works. But there's a lot of rhythm. There's a lot of things that, follow suit. So it is very interesting indeed to look at some previous price action points put onto the current chart. And I think it looks really, really similar to 2021. I mean, you can't even write this stuff. It's crazy. Now, when it comes to individual altcoin selling, let's just go for SUI, for example. You can put the fibs on that from this high to this low. And we can see that the first target point would be the 7.66 dollar region. Okay, so 7.66. That is a 1.618. Could you maybe take some profits out at all-time highs just on a double top? That's fine as well. Then the next point of attention would be the 2.618. That would be around $11.35 SUI. And then $15. And basically what you're doing is watching to see if these things act as resistance, because quite often they absolutely do. And that makes for a really good time to take profits. For example, guys, if we were to predict SUI from just this price action here, okay, so from the March 2024 level down to this low, we were to predict SUI's future price. Okay, we don't know what happened here. We're just going from there to there. That would have said that the 2.618 was at $5, okay? I was taking profits on SUI around $5. That was basically the top, guys. That was basically the local top. So, you can't go wrong with these things. Now, obviously, if you just sold at the 1.618, that would be pretty early to sell. But looking at it now, it wasn't a terrible idea if you were taking some profits at $3.20 on SUI. So the point is to look at the fib levels as potential DCA out levels. We can go and look at another chart here and draw a similar comparison. We can look at Ondo, for example, and let's go from this high down, this high here to this low, and let's try and predict the future prices for Ondo. Look at it again, very, very close. The 1.618 for Ondo would have been basically at the all-time high, give or take 1%. I mean, it's so close. It's ridiculous. So my point is, use the fibs, look at Bitcoin, look at the S&P 500, look at the DXY, and put all of these things together, and you have some form of an exit strategy. Now, that is an oversimplification. I could talk for 5 hours about exit strategy, and I have done that pretty much in my video course, okay? Which if you do want access to, it's in the description. Me and Cryptex, we put this together. Cryptex actually does most of the exit strategy, but I discuss it here and there. And I will be updating them with a additional video on exit strategy later to the time when it comes to take profits. Okay, so look, exit strategy is complex, but I've given you some things to look at there, and I think it's going to be very valuable to a lot of people when it comes to be the time to take profits. Next question we have is also kind of into exit strategy, but this is more so related to when you take profits, what are you doing, okay? How do you take profits? The actual process of selling an altcoin, and then what do you do with it once you sell it? So my strategy really is to sell the altcoin into stables and then basically convert that into my native fiat currency through my bank, okay? So that's really what my plan is. Pretty simple. If you're in a country where there's maybe big banking issues with crypto, then I don't honestly know what to say. Maybe people in the comment section can help out. I know Revolut is usually pretty good when it comes to crypto. It's a pretty crypto-friendly bank. So if you have access to that, that could be a good one. But yeah, I don't really like the idea of holding stables all the way through the bear market. I don't know if you guys remember, but Terra Luna had a stable coin and that just went to zero. So I'm not saying that will happen to any of the big ones. Obviously, USDT, USDC, they're very safe. But I would just rather have my money off a crypto stable coin and like maybe in my bank. I don't really hold money in my bank anyway. Yeah, I usually will just convert it to something more tangible, I would maybe buy real estate. I would maybe, de-risk into something else other than just fiat. But if we have a massive widespread market crash, very few things will hold up. So, maybe fiat is one of the options. You get some interest on fiat, maybe bonds. We don't know, but there's probably going to be a massive bear market coming next year. And I wouldn't really be in stable coins if that happens, because one of them could go wrong. Even if it just depegs for a week, you don't want to be in that situation where you're holding a stable coin which is depegged. It's just very risky. So I'm not trying to FUD stable coins. I'm not trying to do that at all. But I would rather my wealth be in something that is actually like backed and, I have some form of insurance rather than just having stable coins on a tangent. Now we have another question here also about exit strategy. So I'll go through this while we are on the topic. This question says, when you sell crypto, what's your plan afterwards with the profits? So what is my plan in the next few years with my crypto profits from this bull run? Very simple. My plan is to de-risk, because right now I have like 90% of my net worth in crypto, 80%, something crazy. So my plan is to de-risk and get into safer assets that are maybe recession-proof and crash-proof. And there isn't many, by the way. A lot of people think, oh, just go and buy real estate. Well, real estate could go down. Go and buy gold. Well, gold did have a pretty big drop during 2008 as well. So really, some of the best things to have is like cash in an interest account during a complete bear market, and maybe some recession-proof stocks. Okay, maybe some stocks that protected by consumers being weaker, things like that. Maybe I know, for example, McDonald's in 2008 did pretty well. Obviously, when everyone gets broke, where do they go to eat food? They go down the price ladder, right? They go from maybe $20, $30 a meal to $3, $5 a meal. That's what happens when you have a tapped out consumer. So yeah, my plan really is to thrive during a down market. I don't want to just be in cash. I want to try and make money. But the big thing with a macro bear market is just don't lose money. Okay, just don't lose money. If it means putting all your money in cash and just getting whatever interest you get during that crash, or buying bonds, fine, just do that, right? But don't lose money. And I guarantee you, if there's a massive crash in the stock market, crypto, real estate, everything's going to go down. So we kind of want to be protected by that. And if you follow the 18.6-year cycle, you'll know things have been going up for a very long time now. They are getting to the point where they are going to be due a macro downtrend. And I want to be best prepared for that. My VIP group, we're going to be prepared for that. Okay, we'll be shorting cryptos. We'll be shorting all sorts of things that will make us money. And if you want to be in the know, if you want to make a lot of money during the bear market, then join the group. Okay, and I would recommend going for lifetime, because the real money is made in the bear market. A lot of people, when they make their multi-millions, they make it during a bear market, whether that's from shorting, whether that's from actually buying during the fear, whatever it is, that's when the money is made. All right, we got another question by Sean. This question says, hear the theory lately that ETH outperformed last cycle because of all the activity from NFT hype. Last cycle's highs for ETH are probably what we'll get this cycle. Thoughts? I agree to a large extent with this sentiment. I really do. Most likely for me, Ethereum's going somewhere between 4 to 6K this cycle. I don't see a blow off top of 10K like some people are saying. It just hasn't got the same hype and momentum as it had last cycle. And momentum is massive in crypto. Once you lose momentum, it can be very, very hard to get it back. And you're absolutely right to talk about the NFT craze. A lot of people don't realize, but NFTs were massive last cycle. They were driving so much of the price action with Ethereum. So much of the fees and the transactions were coming from NFTs. And that isn't really a thing now. Now, maybe it could come back, but my fear is if it comes back, it will probably come back on Solana or something else that's much faster and much more efficient. So Ethereum really is kind of in a crisis right now. It's kind of in a midlife crisis. It doesn't really know what its purpose is. A lot of people are pointing to DeFi, but it's always been the hub for DeFi. So that's not really a new thing. And you've got really good quality projects moving away from Ethereum over to Solana or over to their native layer ones. I'll give you a couple examples. Render moved from Ethereum to Solana. Ondo, it's in the process of moving from Ethereum to its own layer one. So There are certainly things fundamentally wrong with Ethereum, and that's obviously why it's so much off course right now. I mean, I was looking at Ethereum and I was charting it, and really, if Ethereum was following its cyclical path as it should, it would probably be around $6,000 right now if it was following how it should have gone. It's not even at 4,000. It's not even at 5,000. It's at 1.5K right now. Ethereum should have broke out and made a new all-time high at that point. It should have done that. It didn't. And that is the point of concern with Ethereum, is when it was supposed to break out, it didn't, and it came all the way back down basically to its range lows. So yeah, I think it's most likely that Ethereum goes to the 786 level again of 4K and maybe makes a triple top, or maybe it goes to its all-time high, has a double top at its all-time high, or maybe a slight marginal high around like the 6K region, something like that, right? We see that quite often with coins which are kind of becoming outdated. You go back and look at some of the previous coins last cycle, not all of them made a blow off top. Okay, it wasn't every single coin in the market which ended up looking like that, guys. A lot of coins, what they did, they obviously had the 2017 bull run, followed by a bear market, and then they made a slight high, and then they crashed. So there's quite a few coins last cycle which just made a marginal high and not necessarily a major blow off top. Maybe we can look at some examples. So what did Monero do? Yeah, marginal high, exactly what I was talking about. So obviously it had the 2017 high followed by a slight marginal high. And there was quite a few coins which looked like this. I think there's a solid chance Ethereum looks like that. And you know what? That wouldn't even bother me. Like, we would still get a really good run on altcoins. If Ethereum just goes to 5 or 6K, we're going to have a really nice run on altcoins. So I'm not going to be too concerned about that. But yeah, I also want to touch a little bit more on this question earlier about when you sell your crypto, what's your plan afterwards? I mentioned like my bear market strategy, but my strategy is to buy back into crypto, obviously during the bear, for another bull run. We're going to do this all again. And obviously the game will change completely for the next cycle, but my plan will be to do this all over again next cycle. And I'm going to be here over in the VIP group with you guys for that. So, you know, just saying, highly recommend getting on the VIP membership, getting in the Discord. Lifetime is at a crazy discount right now if you use the code SAVE20. And you can join me and all the other members, voice chats every single day, VIP live streams. You can track my buys and sells with a complete buy and sell alert channel. I mean, it's just the place to be in crypto, guys. If you want to be in the know, if you want to be updated with the markets, you want to be in a community full of like-minded people, that is the place to be. I appreciate you guys watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Smash the likes if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video.